It costs nearly $25,000 a year to attend a public college in America on average when room and board are factored in. This is almost $9,000 a year more than a person working minimum wage, the average occupation for a college student, full time, can earn. The price of education is ludicrous and suppresses those who need it most, the underprivileged youth. Investing in our education system will bring enormous benefits, huge strides forward in science, technology, and social progress. By retarding the ability of large swaths of our population to pursue an education, we are unintentionally and severely slowing American progress in vital areas. The best investment we can make in the future of America and humanity in general is in our education system. Currently, we sit far behind the world leaders in terms of education. Although many would agree that education is important, few understand the far reaching effects education has on today's modern societies. We are not on top of the world when it comes to education. According to a recent World Economics Forum study, the United States is eighth on a list of the most educated countries in the world, behind Singapore, Norway, Switzerland, and others. The United States was once the world leader in education, but this is no longer the case. Many, however, are uninformed of the severity of our growing educational deficit and believe the United States is still on top or very close to the top. The WEF study rated countries' educations on an index that ranged from 1 to 7, with 1 being the lowest and 7 as the maximum. On this index, the United States received a score of 5.9, tied with Norway and Denmark, but considered behind these two due to our relatively poorly designed higher education system, relatively low percentage of adults with college degrees when compared to other countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, a 34-country intergovernmental agency. In addition, the United States has more inertia in its educational system and is less likely to improve its educational system. The reason that the United States trails these global leaders is a complicated, multifaceted one. One of the largest issues, however, is the cost of higher education. According to Business Insider, the United States is the 6th most expensive place in the world one can get a college education. And as you can see from this graphic, we spend far more on education than any other country. This is due to many factors, such as relatively high wages for our educators, a positive thing, and wasted funds on every single level of education, a very negative thing. You can also see that we have a lower percentage of adults with degrees here in America as compared to the world leaders. Singapore, for example, is in first place. This is often cited as being because of social pressure. Here in America, we have very little social pressure to get a degree, as we have flourishing trade schools and things of that nature. However, in Singapore, people are publicly shamed if they've got no degree. Perhaps this is a bit far, but we can all agree that something needs to be done to encourage and enable the public to attend universities and further the cutting edge of science and technology right here at home. The greatest step we can take in this direction is to eliminate the cost of education as it affects our students. Of the top 3 most educated countries in the world, 2, Finland and the Netherlands, have either free or largely subsidized tuition. The other, Singapore, has a society based entirely on education and technology. Free education correlates clearly and very closely with higher levels of education in the public. Raising the level of government subsidy of education in America to near or complete coverage would make the system much more effective at reaching the public and encouraging students to enroll and to see through their degree. Currently, we are slipping behind in the realms of technology and science. According to Forbes, the United States is the 7th most technologically innovative country in the world. We used to be number 1. While many analysts believe we are still in fact in first place in overall advancement, this could quickly change if the innovation gap is not closed. In addition to advancements in the sciences that could be triggered by making education more widely available and more affordable, there are other major positive results to be obtained. Higher standards of living are associated very closely with countries with free or subsidized higher education. Of the top 5 countries on the Social Progress Index, 4 have free or higher education. Finland, Denmark, Australia, and Switzerland all have free tuition. The outlier, Canada, has its tuition highly subsidized. On the same Social Progress Index, which ranks all the world's countries in comparison with one another in such categories as access to healthcare and access to education, the US sits at number 19. Higher education is tied to higher standards of living everywhere in the world. It is simply logical that in countries where the public has unlimited access to education, that very same public would be happier and healthier than one which has its access to education restricted or denied. If we Americans want to catch up with the world leaders in social progress, the best way to do that is to reform the education system and allow anyone interested and dedicated enough to pursue degrees to do so. The level of education of a country is the most glaring and undeniable measure of how it compares with the rest of the world. In many ways, the United States is still on top of the world. However, in one very important field, education, we are far from it. We are 19th on the Social Progress Index, largely due to our cumbersome and pricey education system. We are the 6th most expensive place in the world to get an education and the most expensive of the superpowers. We are the 8th most educated country in the world, far from the top. Education is the most important indicator of how a society is performing. By these metrics, we are doing very poorly. It is up to us, the American people, to support leaders who emphasize education, especially lowering or eliminating the cost of it, to popularize the idea that education is important, and to make our voices heard on this issue.